Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, for being here with us. My name is Georgina Gorman. I'm the Executive Director of TreeSisters, and my wonderful colleague, Ashley Tamburello, who is our Head of Impact and Engagement, is joining us today too. Welcome to Growing Seeds of Change. You've been invited here today as a member of our wonderful community of Tree Sisters around the world. And in today's session, we'll be sharing some highlights from our annual report, which is going to come out later in the year, around about November. We'll be taking a look back on what's been achieved in the last year, and we'll share just how much the gifts and support of this amazing community, what it's enabled through incredible change for forests, women, and communities around the world. So thank you for being here and joining us. If you'd like to add your name and where you're joining us from in the chat now, as folks are arriving into the session, we'd love to hear from you all. We may close down the chat later on during the sessions. We can all focus. It all depends on how many folks we have joining us today, and how much we get through all of the content that we've got to share with you today as well. We are recording today's session for those who can't be here with us in person, so they can watch it back later. And perhaps if you want to recap anything that we may go through too quickly, we've got a lot to share with you. And we'll start off by arriving into the space and sharing gratitude for the earth. We try to start our meetings like this at Tree Sisters. So I'll invite you all just to take a moment to land, either to set your eyes on a tree outside your window, perhaps, or perhaps a house plant in the room with you, or even just to imagine yourself sitting in a part of nature that feels particularly connected to you, and where you can really feel nature's beauty and abundance. So I'll invite you just to sit in that moment of either visual or imagination, just to sit in that moment of gratitude for a minute now. Thank you for taking part in that practice with us. Feel free to come back to the room when you're ready. We find that it's so important to show gratitude for our earth. So much of the modern way of living takes nature for granted. And taking these moments also gives us space to think about what is at risk and what we could lose if we continue on this trajectory that humanity is on. So many of the challenges that we face in the world today, be it the climate crisis, the oppression of women, the destruction of the natural world, the pervasive influence of organizations and actors harming our planet, the erosion of democracy, the growing inequality and billionaires hoarding wealth around the world. All of these things are not separate issues. They stem from the same systems of power built on extraction, control, and endless profit, no matter the cost. And all of these systems are built on a profound disconnection from the living world that sustains us all. The work we do at Tree Sisters is part of creating a better future and is deeply interconnected. As part of this movement, you probably already know this, but to remind us all of our mission and why we're here today. Our action starts with nature connection because people will protect what they love. So we want to help people remember what used to be really obvious. We are nature. We're not apart from it, but a part of it. And with that comes the responsibility to limit our harm, to live within nature's limits, and to also give back where we can. At Tree Sisters, we take part and implement and help to restore the planet through ethical, community-led and women-led restoration initiatives. And through those, we are fighting climate change, we are returning resources to the land and communities, restoring nature, and protecting the planet for generations to come. You'll know that we particularly focus on restoring global balance by working with a focus on gender equity. So in a world shaped by patriarchy, our work uplifts women through funding, training, platforming, and advocacy. We've always stood for systemic change and using our voice, connections, and influence to push for change and to spotlight another way, a better way, away from systems of oppression and control and towards balance, restoration, and peace. So, being a tree sister means all of these things and more. It's believing that there's a better way of living on this planet and taking real steps to rebuild our relationship with Earth and with each other. So thank you all for being here with us today and being a part of this community. You may have already heard that this year has been incredibly tough for the charitable sector. TreeSisters has not been immune from that. We have unfortunately had to reduce the scale of our restoration work, and we've drastically reduced our team size. You can learn more about those challenges in the report when it's available, or you may want to email in if you want to hear more. You've probably seen a lot of the headlines about the charity sector struggling, so it may not be news to you. But importantly, no matter the obstacles, TreeSisters has remained rooted in our mission, and your belief in that mission matters now more than ever. So thank you for standing with us. Thank you for being a tree sister. You know our roots are so much deeper than just planting trees, and you're here because you truly care for nature, for equity, and for balance. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for that. We're so grateful for your support and are so proud to share this space with you today. Tree Sisters around the world are joining together to protect and restore nature, and thank you for being part of that community. Your support of our work allows women like Rosalind to protect their landscapes whilst finally getting a seat at the table. So again, thank you. Some final housekeeping before we continue on. We do have an hour together today and we should have some time for Q&A at the end. You're welcome to add any questions into Zoom as we go through the Q&A function. The chat is still open, it probably will stay open, so you can also chat in there as we go too. I'd like to share a trigger warning for gender-based violence and sexual violence. That is something that the communities within our projects contend with, and also that's something our projects work to help alleviate. So we may mention those things today in our time together. I'd also like to upfront share a disclaimer that these figures are as accurate as they can be in the context that we work in. So there's can be things like technological challenges with reporting, but also some cultural norms which make it challenging to get really accurate figures. A good example of that to demonstrate the issue is that in one of our projects, it's the cultural norm that women sign the name of their husbands as the head of the household and as a sign of respect. So even in participation logs for the project, when we look at reforestation numbers, sometimes it can be hard to tell when it's been women that have participated, even though visually we can, our partners can tell that they've been signed with their husband's name. So it can be hard to track that after the through the monitoring process. Another flag is that our reporting year as a charity runs April to March. So we are sharing today impact from April 24 to March 25, whereas some of the projects start at different times of the year and work in line with their local rainy seasons. So we may call out different time periods at certain points, particularly when we're talking about individual projects. It may be that they run for the calendar year, so just for 2024, or it may be that they've started and stopped at a time point within that. No matter what, we make sure that we're only reporting it once, but you may hear different figures based on whether it's the charity year or the project year. So a few caveats out the way, a few housekeeping out the way. Again, a huge thank you for being here with us today. And now I get to hand over to my lovely colleague, Ashley, who's going to share more about our restoration and reforestation work this year. Over to you.
Thank you, Georgina, and thanks everybody for being with us here today. We know when we look around the world that the signs are clear. We can see rising temperatures, unpredictable rains, dying forests, and fractured ecosystems. Climate change, we know it's no longer a distant threat, it is reality. It is here, and it is unfortunately disproportionately affecting those closest to the land, especially women in rural communities like those that TreeSisters support in our work. Our Tree Sisters restoration strategy believes that the path forward isn't just about planting trees, but about planting equity. It restores dignity and it rewrites the bond between people and the earth. After 11 years of restoration projects across 12 countries, we've learned one lesson, and that's very clear. It's that when local women and communities lead, forests thrive. Community led restoration, like this at Tree Sisters, delivers higher survival rates, it delivers stronger biodiversity, and it has longer term impact because it is rooted in local knowledge, culture, and ownership. The majority of our projects plant trees chosen by the community for their food, medicinal, ecological, or cultural value. These forests became safe havens for all sorts of local biodiversity. Community led forests typically achieve 15 to 30% higher survival rates than externally managed projects, as people are more invested in what they plant. We know that restored forests absorb carbon dioxide, it stabilizes soils, and it reduces floods and landslides, which in turn protects both people and ecosystems. And one of our projects in Uganda, women-led bamboo planting along riverbanks, is actively reducing the risks of landslides. Training in agroforestry, seed saving, and eco enterprise also provides women with alternative income sources to slash and burn farming or charcoal production, and it thereby eases pressure on their forests. Studies also back what we're seeing in our projects and in the field. We know that a 2020 meta-analyst in Nature Sustainability found that community managed forests have higher biodiversity and reforestation success rates than top-down or privately managed efforts. We see that when restoration is women led and community owned, the impact is ecological, social, and systemic. Forests recover faster, communities become more climate resistant, and climate resilient. We want resistance, climate resilient, and women gain agency, income, and voice. This is why community led restoration outperforms traditional Western approaches. It's rooted in reciprocity, sustained by local stewardship, and it's designed for long term resilience. If we move to slide 7, yeah. So this is a map of the communities around the world in 2024-2025 financial year, where we were able to restore the lands and livelihoods thanks to your support. We will share some of the stories from these projects here today with you, but if you'd like to learn more about the projects that we don't have time to share with you today, all of those are on our website and also our social media channels. This past year was a massive year of impact. We funded over 200,000 trees, and we have restored over 340 hectares. We worked across 7 countries, and your support has directly benefited over 35,000 people and indirectly benefited nearly 200,000. While it's still early, initial reported figures from our partners suggest 90% of these trees have survived, with some of our partners reaching as high as 97%. These trees will have a long-term impact on the communities as our agreements provide for the care and monitoring of the trees for 10 years. This was the first year we had an increased request for agroforestry trees. Agroforestry helps support economic independence and nutritional benefits. It increases biodiversity and it supports pollinators. We also know that agroforestry trees can protect old growth and rainforests by creating new sources of food and resources. This is one of our community members from Brazil, and it's a beautiful quote. You can read it here. I'm not going to need to read it for you. And we also know that restoring forests isn't just about restoring trees, it's about creating space for life to return. As forest cover increases and natural corridors are reconnected, wildlife begins to find its way back. In Kenya, reforested land is now home again to many species, including an elephant family, which is returning to an area that was once completely bare. Their presence is a powerful sign. When we care for the land, nature responds. If you look in there, there is a very small baby elephant. Also on this slide, you'll see a few of the other species we've had returned to the lands restored by the projects that you have funded and supported, and a few of those pictures on the side. Um, More recently, which is the past couple of weeks, we have also seen orangutans return to restored land in Borneo, which is one of the most recent projects we've had as well. On our social media page, there is a few videos of the orangutans running through the forests. I'm going to turn this over to Georgina to talk about one of our other threads of work, which is gender equity.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And I always, I'm nervous about going after baby elephants because how can I possibly compete with baby elephants? But I have a chance to because I get to share about women's leadership and gender equity, which is as you all know, has always been such an important part of Tree Sisters' mission. It's quite literally in our name. We believe that restoring the planet must go hand in hand with addressing social inequalities. Environmental degradation and gender-based injustice are deeply linked. Now, this isn't about the exclusion of men, it is about the inclusion of everyone. Everyone must act to save our planet. To regenerate ecosystems, we must uplift those that are most impacted and those that are also simultaneously the least heard or listened to. And that means particularly women and Indigenous women. Some of these issues and stats may be familiar to you already, but just to kind of ground what I've just shared there in some of the issues. So I've mentioned those that are most impacted. So globally, women are disproportionately impacted by climate change, and that can be is due to systemic factors, things like social, cultural, economic, and legal factors that are inherent within the systems that thrive and breathe in our everyday lives. So women are the most likely to rely heavily on forests for essentials like water, firewood, food, medicine, and those resources are also increasingly degraded by climate change and deforestation, which causes a cycle of challenge there. As the forests disappear, women need to walk further to collect those resources, which can impact their health. And they also face greater risks by needing to travel deeper into forests, which can put them at greater risk of sexual and gender-based violence. And it's not just everyday life that can be impacted by the effects of climate change, disadvantaging women. During natural disasters, women and children are 14 times more likely to die than men, which is just an absolutely astonishing number, 14 times more likely. And some of the factors that go into that are things like clothing, cultural norms around clothing. So if you imagine in societies where it's more likely that women are wearing dresses or floating fabric around their legs, they can be more disadvantaged to escape things like mudslides, flooding. They are also Women are more likely to be the ones at home looking after children and elders, so they are less likely to be able to mobilize quickly in an event of an emergency. In some cultures, it's not acceptable to leave the house without men, so that can also mean that women are waiting at home for a male relative to come back and join them to be able to make an escape, which can impede their safety. And furthermore, it's likely that in cultures where men are in higher status positions, and that's the norm, that information about natural disasters is more likely to be shared from men to men. So within the roles, the more powerful positions within the society, which can mean that it's mostly men that are finding out and hearing these early warnings. And it means that women, again, can be more at risk of these natural disasters. Unfortunately, it doesn't end there because even women who survive the disasters then go on to face lower life expectancy after the disaster has passed. So it's still a poor situation for women even after the immediate danger has passed. Whilst women are among the most impacted, as I mentioned, they're also the most effective change makers. And part of that is because they have a deep knowledge of the forest as their primary user, as I've mentioned, the ones who are continually visiting for firewood, fuel, for water, for resources. They have a deeper knowledge of the forest itself and what's needed to restore and protect her, and also what's needed in the community. So the social role that women play in their community means they're more likely to understand from a holistic approach what's necessary to enact change and to make to build on previous projects or to bring people on the journey to create behavior change, they're more likely to have an awareness of what that needs to be for the community that they're in. And all of these factors are why our restoration projects embed gender equity and also why they're led by the needs and cultures of local communities, because it cannot be a one size fits all solution. It needs to be culturally sensitive and needs to be holistic based on what is needed, what is the most needed in the project, and what order of things needs to happen as well. So all of our projects look different at Tree Sisters. There's no one way that we go about restoring the planet. And some of the things that we have within our projects, all of them will have agroforestry training. Some will include paid employment roles, and majority include paid employment roles. Some include training women in leadership, which enables them to take on community leadership roles and have a say in decision making more widely even than the restoration project itself. Some include supporting fruit and vegetable planting in individual gardens, creating so-called kitchen gardens, and those can improve food security and nutrition, and can also be a form of income from the surplus that's grown within those gardens. Some of our projects include installing or training how to install eco-friendly cook stoves. Those reduce health risks and also protect forests by reducing the amount of firewood needed. One of our projects included restarting a reusable sanitary pad enterprise, which has environmental benefits but also can bring income for the folks within the enterprise itself. And also the supplies that they create enables girls to stay in school. And also many of our projects include gender champions or a kind of similar role to that, which are folks taking on the role of raising awareness and promoting women's safety, and they're trained to do that. So there's lots of different ways that we work, and each project is different. And throughout, we aim to uplift the voices of women in these partnerships and throughout the whole restoration sector. We want to encourage awareness of some of these issues that we've mentioned, and also to inspire action to support global gender equity and nature restoration. So our work at Tree Sisters really recognises that women are not just victims of these crises, they are powerful agents of change. And looking back to the financial year 24 to 25, your support helped over 11,000 women to gain skills in forestry and plant trees in their communities. Across all of our projects, we had over 60% of the participants identified as female. And I've already mentioned some of the challenges that we can have, so it's likely that that figure may be underreported due to some of those cultural norms and challenges I mentioned. Over 450 women have also stepped into leadership roles in either within the project or within their community. They've been inspired and enabled to step into community leadership positions as well. Moving on to a specific project that we've supported that women were truly at the heart of, our project in DRC together with Association Voix Libre. So if you'd like to take a moment just to imagine yourself in the Ruzizi Plain in Luvungi, DRC. The land once flourished with fruit-bearing trees, thick forest canopies, and traditional ecological knowledge was passed down from generation to generation, so they knew how to care for the land. Decades of unsustainable logging, of conflict, and neglect of the land took their toll, and the forest thinned and the soil turned fragile. Rainfall then declined, creating a vicious cycle. The forests around Luvungi weren't just trees, they were medicine, food, fuel, shade, and shelter. Communities that relied on agriculture found themselves struggling to feed their families, and women and girls bore the burden. As I mentioned, they had to walk further for firewood and food. It's also interesting here that communities had lost trust in reforestation efforts after several failed NGO projects, and most of those were taking a traditional Western approach of imposing a solution on the area, and they just didn't work. Without a change, the cycle of poverty and environmental degradation that was taking place would have continued. From a community member there, shared, "We used to farm with the help of nature. Now the land is tired. We needed to bring the forest back." And that's exactly what happened. You can see some of the incredible stats on the slide. Over 20,000 trees planted, and those included over 12,000 fruit trees, including mango and mandarins. You can imagine yourselves eating some of those beautiful fruits in the Ruzizi Plain in the DRC. Those fruit trees were planted in 16 edible squares that were created in schools, churches, health centres, and households. So they were really bringing the community together. The remainder of those trees were reforesting the Ruzizi Plain, and reforesting over 40 hectares. And native tree regeneration was encouraged there too, so hopefully creating an even bigger area and an even more rich biodiversity in the area. Those edible trees are now feeding families, with food security visibly improving in the area. Over 13,000 people have directly benefited already, with over 85,000 people across Longvungi indirectly benefiting from some of those environmental improvements. Women have gained leadership, gained confidence and recognition. Traditional leaders have joined into the project, passing down some of that ecological knowledge and ancestral wisdom that has been lost over some of the years. And youth in schools have been planting the trees and learning about land stewardship so the generations can continue to create positive change for the future. From a community member shared, these fruit trees will improve my family's diet. The forest is becoming ours again. And truly, as you can tell, the forest is returning, and with it returns hope, food, equity, and ancestral memory. Because when the forests return, so does the future. And this project truly would not have been possible without community relays. And they were 40 women who were trained to lead on community engagement and project activities. They went door to door to at least 20 households each. So you can imagine the impact that grew and grew. And they were raising awareness about the importance of reforestation and protecting trees. They helped to identify the sites to be reforested. They organised the tree planting, distributed the seedlings, and they also led the monitoring and evaluation. So clearly, these women were not just participants, they were change agents. Often they had little or no formal education, and they found themselves leading training sessions, answering questions, and coordinating the reforestation work. For many, it was their first time speaking in public, an experience that transformed their self-esteem and social standing. Their presence and leadership raised the status of women in Lungvangi, where they had historically been marginalised. So, by equipping women with tangible skills and recognising their contributions, the project has helped communities to reimagine what leadership can look like and who it can belong to. Moving to another project that would just not have been possible without incredible women leading the way in Rukoki, Uganda. This project has supported over 300 women to restore fragile lands on the steep Rwenzori mountainside. And you can see from the picture there just the incline of the mountains there that they're walking through and often restoring. And this project has been within the foothills, and some of the farmers are on the mountainside itself. Historically, in the area, farming methods, deforestation, and soil erosion have left the area overexploited. And the steep terrain there is vulnerable to natural disasters such as flooding, drought, and landslides. And actually, in Rakoki itself, there has been a major landslide within the last few years that caused multiple fatalities, most of whom were women and children. So now this project has been able to expand into Rakoki. We've been taking part with Alpha Women Empowerment Initiative to implement this project in several different villages within Kasisi. So this project has helped to restore degraded landscapes while also tackling poverty, food insecurity, and gender-based violence. Kasisi, as a sub-county, is one of the poorest regions in Uganda. Poverty levels are around 55%. That means also 1 in 3 people have struggled to regularly find food, and malnutrition is really prevalent, with around 45% of children under 6 experiencing impaired growth because of malnutrition. Our project partner shared, visiting with families that often the families themselves have perhaps only had one bowl of porridge, and that will have to last them the entire day. The region is also historically marked by domestic violence and gender inequality. In 2021, 95% of women and girls in Kasisi reported that they had survived physical violence, sexual violence, or both from the age of 15. And even recently this summer, there was a report that Kasisi is still the third worst for gender-based violence across Uganda. So at the district level, they're working on initiatives to reduce that level. And part of the solution, we've been invited into those discussions. Our team supporting Alpha Women Empowerment Initiative, they've been invited into those discussions as well, as those numbers have improved in the villages and sub-counties where we've been doing this restoration work. So our partnership really with them is a powerful women-led reforestation initiative. As I mentioned, we've reached 18 villages now across 3 sub-counties in Kasisi, and the project slide on the screen focuses on Rakoki in 2024. The women were recruited and trained as leaders, field agents, and change agents. They've managed to establish 2 large-scale nursery beds, which are capable of producing over 70,000 trees and bamboo seedlings. They've trained over 300 women in tree planting, in kitchen gardening, in group leadership, and in the energy-saving cook stove construction. All of these elements together create a really holistic vision for supporting gender equity, for reducing gender-based violence, whilst also restoring the land, whilst improving nutrition, improving women's health, improving prospects for future, increasing income for women. So really it is a holistic initiative that addresses multiple issues all at once, and has knock-on effects for each of those interconnected issues. Over 329 kitchen gardens have been created. 36 women have been given inputs and tools and seed funding to start up their own businesses, and they are now self-employed, creating their own businesses. And 40 gender champions have been reducing domestic violence and are there promoting gender equity, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. The results, as you can see, are both ecologically beneficial and profound. So, as Ashley mentioned, are over 97% tree survival rate. And that is really a testament to the dedication and the skills of the women farmers in this project. The riverbanks, which were once vulnerable to erosion and at risk of those deadly landslides, are being better stabilised now with bamboo and those grass suckers. Food production has increased. Women are reporting better nutrition. They're also able to sell their surplus for additional income. Women have already taken on leadership roles in their communities, and they themselves have brought in new innovations into the project, like seed saving. So instead of buying in seeds at the beginning of every reforestation season, they are collecting them from once the fruit and flowers have passed. They're collecting those seeds and saving them for the next year in a log that's very clearly labeled, so they're able to then grow them the next year, and saving their costs for the future. Community harmony has improved thanks to the work of those gender champions who've been mediating domestic challenges in couples. And I'm going to move to a quote from one of the gender champions because it's just so powerful. The gender champions have been trained to share knowledge with others about gender equity, and also to help intervene and counsel couples where there is a risk of domestic violence, and to signpost them and encourage reporting in cases where women have been victims of gender-based violence. As I mentioned, 40 courageous women took on this role, and the community has already reported greater harmony. We hope this will continue through all the villages and sub-counties that we're supporting in Kasisi, and that they'll see a bigger, greater district level change soon. I mentioned the project in Rakoki was an expansion of the successful initiative we've been having with Alpha Women Empowerment Initiative across other sub-counties in Kasisi. And on screen, you can see one of the couples supported by the training in Mbunga sub-county in 2023, and I'd like to play that for you now.
Mkelen owe katrom wo mombora yembunga obutu kubwe hanyum na bingani na mwira wai twavi tukalavanganako okuyisongesya omwani itukalima hawuma betu esayarigulya itukalavanganako isalimba kusya sente muvanyisombola na mwira wawe netu twamasoma kumusomo owavateke omwaka wahwere owangu 2023 muvatusomesya erikolera hawuma kandi nerighabana ebikala omumwani hawuma neryo mutwasa twamaberererya ebyatwasoma erilwa kutukasomera kumusomo avateke twabiritsuka erilima mwani wetu wahayimerera itwanowa hawumerera twanikira hawumerera twarondya katali hawumerera ekiru kyeriyawulya itwaghenda hayima itwaseka nesyasente syetu tukalahisi itwasighabira ebiyithawa byetu itunekirinizirye ngayowa esene ngawithe obuholho bunene namwira wayi hayima nabana bayi kandi twabiritsuka erikulakulana mwasinja kutsibu aba alfa
omukyara wa ikavu Yezefina omusomo watwasoma nayo owavateke twabirihambawu ebyo twasoma tunemubikolesya tunemuna omwani wuyu tukanza erisomesya kuwu kwabana.
So beautiful to hear from Josefina and her husband there about the couples training that they took part in. And just to share the context, that training was around budgeting and benefits sharing. So the couples that took part were already farmers, and they've benefited now from agroforestry training to support better yields for the coffee that they were already growing, and also that they've taken part in this couples training. So before, where it was the cultural norm that the man would be responsible for receiving the profit, even when women had helped to tend the land and produce the coffee. The men originally had the cultural norm was that they would receive the income, they would be selling the produce, receive the income, and would be responsible for where the income went. Because of this training, couples like Josefina and her husband are learning that should be a joint effort, and that when women are participating in the farming in the family, they should also be responsible in their partnership for joint budgeting and choosing where that income goes. And our partners have shared that often when women are involved, it means that more money is going back into the family. So thank you for taking a moment to hear from Josefina there. And I think I'm going to hand over to Ashley now to take us to Nature Connection.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. So at TreeSisters, we mentioned that we're working within 3 different areas of work, one being gender equity, then restoration, but also nature connection. And it's important to us that we incorporate nature connection not only in our projects, but also for our supporters and our followers, like everyone on the call today. Nature connection is at the heart of everything that TreeSisters does. Research consistently shows that when people feel connected to the natural world, they're far more likely to care for it. And we believe that reconnecting with the natural world is essential to sustaining life on Earth. In much of the global north, where probably everyone calling in today lives, our way of living has drifted far from what our ancestors once understood, and from the wisdom that is still held by many indigenous and local communities. We cannot have infinite growth on a finite planet. TreeSisters uses our platform and privilege to advocate for a culture of reciprocity, one that acknowledges our dependence on nature and embraces the responsibility to live within her limits. The first step in restoring our planet is remembering that we are part of nature and not separate from it. Over the past year, we have expanded our educational resources and tools, and we are designed to inspire our global audience to see forests as living allies and not just resources. You can find those materials on our website, and we are constantly updating and adding new information and just general new concepts and content there as well. These materials encourage personal reflection, collective responsibility, and they help us to reconnect to the earth, and in doing so, hopefully changing the trajectory of our rapidly shifting world. Over the past year, we have continued to provide this range of opportunities for nature connection and ways individuals can learn, reflect, and participate in a global movement rooted in collaboration, community, and care. We've hosted over 23 events, we've reached over 1,200 people, and we've grown awareness to nearly 4,000. We've launched a new forest bathing webpage and resource, and that's been downloaded over 400 times. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't accessed it, please do. It's on the website. And we also spoke to the power of grounding, and we've had over 1,000 people have visited our site to learn more about nature connection. One of our projects in Bolivia has a very special connection to nature, and they incorporate that into all of their restoration work. We invite restoration partners to integrate their own ceremonies, their own ancestral practices, and their cultural rituals. By doing so, they strengthen the spiritual ties to the land, and they share traditional ecological knowledge that connects people with earth and each other. In Bolivia, in this project, you'll see some pictures from here on the page. Indigenous customs such as Añi, which means reciprocal work, and Pachamama, which means Mother Earth. These ceremonies are integrated into the restoration process, which reinforces cultural traditions. If you can imagine a dry hillside in Bolivia, once alive with native trees, birdsong, and the footsteps of ancestors. Over time, the land has fallen silent, fires have scarred the hills, crops have failed, and families can walk for hours to collect water and wood. In the highlands and valleys of this region, women-led and indigenous communities whose traditions and survival are deeply rooted in the land, they've watched their forests vanish. Deforestation, climate change, and economic hardship has left bare soils, food scarce, and sacred landscapes lost, taking with them the wisdom of generations. As the Bolivia project arrived, again, funded through people like yourselves, it offered not just trees, but the restoration of life, dignity, and relationship. Across this region, 45 edible squares were created, which are living gardens of fruit trees, medicinal plants, and shade-giving species. We've had 12,000 trees take root, and of those, 8,000 are fruit trees. Communities have been trained in tree care, irrigation, and ancestral reforestation practices. Women have led every step of the journey. They've designed, they've planted, and they've tended the land. They've woven together traditional knowledge with modern agroforestry. This project comes alive with ceremonies, storytelling, and school programs, and it rekindles the cultural and spiritual ties that have been fractured. The land has absolutely responded. There now are 6 hectares that are reforested, 12 are under natural regeneration, and 18 are protected. Pollinators have returned, birds have returned, and the Andean fox walks these hills again, wildflowers blooming where once only ash lay. Families harvest fruit near their homes, which reduces hunger and labor, and the women say, "We are not just planting trees, we are planting our future." This Bolivia project demonstrates the spiritual and ceremony practices are not symbolic add-ons, but core to how restoration is understood, initiated, and sustained. These practices helped incorporate cultural meaning into reforestation, restored a deep community relationship with the land, and deepened accountability to both nature and ancestors. In the Tanare National Park, members of the indigenous communities have the custom of thanking the Pachamama through rituals before carrying out community work. This is describing biocultural restoration through indigenous ritual practices which honor Mother Earth during planting. It's a beautiful picture of one of the participants in Bolivia. This past year, we also launched Rooted in Ethics, which is a framework for community tree stewardship. This project was 5 years in the making, quite a while, and we're thrilled to see the research and collaboration and deep listening and development come to life in print. It's also available on our website for download. We co-published Rooted in Ethics with The Fountain, better connecting TreeSisters with elders and spiritual leaders from many original nations and cultures from around the world. The framework has already informed our restoration strategy and promotes an alternative approach to ethical restoration. We are very proud to say that Rooted in Ethics is being used as a basis for an ethical framework within the rights of nature movement, and more to that to come over the next couple of months. In the next year, we're exploring new ways to expand awareness and secure funding for the next phase of work, and our goal is to make Rooted in Ethics more accessible, widely adopted, and deeply integrated into restoration practices and society as a whole. with a very short video of Rooted in Ethics and the launch, which was held in Oxford.
We're here at the launch of Rooted in Ethics, the Community Tree Stewardship Framework.
Fundamentally, most of our current crises relate back to the broken relationship between humans and nature, and we need to repair that relationship in order to solve those crises. And rights of nature is a way of doing that through the law.
All of this beautiful way of understanding the way that original peoples were looking at the skies and were relating to the cycles that they could see in the sky, encompassing the cycles of nature.
So much of the narrative around tree planting restoration is about quantifying nature. This is a completely different view of things. This is around a transformational approach, looking at how communities are affected, looking at rights of communities, but also looking at the rights of nature, looking at the fact that nature needs to recover.
The presentation of the Rooted in Ethics is just a manifestation of who we are, transcending from the old ways of being, from the me to the we, because we have to come together and solve this systemic crisis that we are living through.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, sorry, Ashley.
I was going to say thank you and turn it back over to Georgina.
Thank you. I jumped straight in. I'm just so excited. We have some questions coming in through the Q&A function, and I'd welcome everyone. We'll get to questions just after this slide. So if you have any coming up, you're welcome to put those into the question box there, and we'll stop for questions in just a moment. So thank you, Ashley, for sharing about our nature connection work and about Rooted in Ethics. And it was just such a joy to gather in Oxford to launch the work. As Ashley mentioned, it's been quite a few years in the making, and I imagine many of you have heard from us around Rooted in Ethics in all its generations over the years. So we're honoured to have it out and living and breathing in the world now. So what's next for 2025 to 26? We remain rooted in the principles that have always guided our work for years. So care for the earth, the empowerment of women, deep connection to ethical community-led reforestation, and the vital importance of reconnecting with the natural world before it's too late. We also recognise that the moment that we're in the world calls for evolution and courage and clarity. We continue to champion restoration that uplifts women, centre local and Indigenous knowledge, and that supports communities as leaders in ecological healing. Throughout the next year, dependent on the funding landscape, we will respond to those challenges that I've mentioned are rife within the sector. We will continue to adapt, and we will continue to explore how we can provide deeper non-financial value to our partners, such as through knowledge exchange and community building, and we will continue to be open and chasing down any opportunities that we can flow funding to our partners, because they're just such incredible projects that we support and that your gifts have supported, and we know that this moment is about scaling up that change. So we will always continue to be adaptive and move as we can through that. Advocacy and systemic change. TreeSisters has always stood for systemic transformation. It's always been about shifting from consumption to restoration, from patriarchy to equity, from colonial structures to community sovereignty and rights. And in this next year, as we're sitting within it now, we are continuing to explore how we can use our voice of safety and sanctuary, which feels really resonant with who TreeSisters is and has always been, whilst also stepping more intentionally into some advocacy and systemic change spaces, which we haven't been in the past. It's in alignment with our second charitable object. The work may include raising awareness, education, influencing policy and culture, and continuing to amplify grassroots voices and standing in solidarity with movements that restore justice alongside ecosystems. We've already held a London Climate Action Week event on the rights of nature, and the co-founder of Lawyers for Nature, who is a pioneer of nature's rights, Bronte Ansell, her name is, has joined our board of trustees. So we're excited about being more involved in that rights of nature space. And as Ashley mentioned, we're part of a working group where we're bringing rooted in ethics into looking at rights of nature. So we're hopeful that we can build on what's come before and build out into something beautiful in the future. We've mentioned for nature connection, restoring the planet begins with restoring our relationship with the natural world. So in the year ahead, we'll continue to build those accessible and inclusive opportunities for people to reconnect with nature. And we will do all this whilst continuing to grow a strong and resilient Tree Sisters. So we are committed to continuing for as long as we are needed in the world. And regardless of the funding landscape, which can continue to look uncertain, we are committed to our place in the world and to restoring nature in a way that is ethical and with women at the heart. So that's what's next, or what is currently in progress, as we're already quite far through the next financial year. So I mentioned we'd go to questions, and I think we've had a few come in through the chat box. So I'm going to start through those. And Ashley, should we take each one in turn, and should I take it first, or do you want to jump in? Okay. So Mary, thank you for your questions. So you've shared, perhaps you can speak about the extent to which women and women's groups are beginning to being supported to develop their own projects and or determine their own development goals. So with our restoration projects, as an example, we often start with a process of deep listening or radical listening to hear from a partner what they need, and our partners in turn are hearing from their local communities and the potential project participants what exactly is needed in that environment. We continue to learn from them and have a conversation around what's possible with the funding that we're able to provide and the support that we might be able to provide. So they're instrumental in developing their own projects and determining their own development goals as well. So at the outset of a project, our monitoring and evaluation process is very much community led as well. So we will determine with the community what is it that they're looking to improve, how do they think that they'd be able to manage or to measure that progress, what's a good indicator of that within their local context, and how can we track that and work with them to build that skill if necessary. So it's a balance really of being led by the community, absolutely, and also to help to share knowledge where we can, but ultimately be driven and led by communities and what they need, what the project should look like, whilst sharing perhaps some stories of what's worked in some of our other projects around the world, and different approaches that they may want to take. Ashley, any thoughts on that you'd like to add?
I think you've covered that one. I can jump into the other two questions, really.
Yeah, go ahead.
The one about the Tree Sisters and learning, and what we're bringing back as resources for our struggles closer to home. So the question is, can you speak about what Tree Sisters is learning from these women in the different projects, and what are we bringing back as resources for our struggles close to home? So it's a great question, and we will often share tidbits of information through social media because we get depending on the partner, depending on the pattern of reports, we'll get really interesting feedback and learnings from those. And we'll share those on social media, might be through blogs, might be through thought leadership, you might see through newsletters. But we're increasingly doing so. And we've reevaluated and are in the process of looking at how we really address the learnings that are there. There are times that we can get a report that's 30 pages and it's very easy to miss some of those. So we are looking at new ways to really share that information, because you're absolutely right in that it's just absolutely rich with learnings, and we do need to be able to share those here, especially in the global north, as lessons for how we should connect with the earth and how we should connect with our communities as well. There's another question about can we bring rooted in ethics framework to the UK and Europe? So the rights of nature movement that I mentioned, that Rooted in Ethics is going to be one of the supporting documents for it, one of the main supporting documents that is here in the UK. And that is, it's a group of people, TreeSisters included. There is one or two Green Party members, there's lots of academics, there's lots of nonprofits. There are a few community members in there as well, and a few legal groups. So it's a pretty diverse group of people who are hoping that rights of nature movement takes place, launches in the UK. If you follow it at all, it tends to be first off kind of gaining popularity in rivers. There's a few cases where mountains have gained rights as well. So it's taking off, it's becoming a bigger movement. And then we have not had the time yet to look into Europe, but that certainly is on our radar for something to do. That framework is currently available for download. It's open source, it's on our website, and we will be updating it to make it more accessible over the next couple of months, we hope. And as always, we're looking for additional ideas and routes to share that through conferences, through community groups. So if anyone has an idea for something we may not have accessed, certainly pass that on. There was also a number of questions in the chat, and some really, really good comments. There was one about attending Blue Earth Summit. I don't believe we're going to attend that last year. We have in years past. This year we're attending Earthed, and a few others. But Donna, please reach out specifically to one of us, and we'd love to say hi. And yes, we will have this meeting is being recorded, and we will share it via email. So we would love to have people share that. As awkward as it is to hear and see yourself speak, we'd love to see that shared more widely than just here today. So thank you for suggesting that. Pass it back over to Georgina.
Thank you, Ashley, for answering those so beautifully. Thank you, Mary, for all the questions, and to Donna and Selma in the chat for the lovely comments and questions there too. Thank you so much for engaging with us and being part of this community today and part of the conversation. And thank you to everyone on the call for being here with us. No matter how big or small your gifts, we are so grateful for your support and commitment and participation in this community. So we're asking with your support for the next year to we'll be able to strengthen women's leadership, to restore forests and vital ecosystems, to protect biodiversity under threat, to expand opportunities for nature connection, and continue to advocate for systemic change. If you're able to tell your family and friends, if you know of any good podcasts like Donna's mentioned in the chat, anywhere we should be, then please do let us know. If you can make any introductions, that would be wonderful. If you're in a position to consider funding at scale and you might like to support one of our projects, then please do reach out to us. If you know anyone who might, then please do introduce us. We'd love to have those conversations. We also do have a couple of match funding opportunities coming up between now and the holidays that you'll hear about if you're on our mailing list. If you're able to support or share, as always, we would be incredibly thankful. As being here as part of this community, we are so eternally grateful, and together we will continue to reforest the earth, to restore relationship, and to reimagine what is possible when women rise for nature. So thank you for being part of this movement. Some upcoming events you may already be aware of. We have our full moon gathering, which happens monthly. We know that our topic for October will be reciprocity, which is one of the 3 principles from Rooted in Ethics that we mentioned earlier. The dates to come, so sign up to our mailing list if you're interested, or keep an eye on our website for that. And our next book club is going to be at the end of September. They are reading The Spirit of the Rainforest. Ashley had a conversation with Dr. Rosa, who is the author of this wonderful book, earlier in the year. So in case you missed that conversation, it is well worth a listen to recap on that. We would love to see you at either of these events or any of our events coming up. So do be sure to sign up to our mailing list or keep in touch with us on social media if you aren't already. So a final thank you from me, from Ashley, the whole team at TreeSisters, from our restoration partners, and the thousands of women that you've given purpose, value, and better opportunities to, and from the forest that you've restored for generations to come, and on behalf of nature herself. As being part of this community, you're stepping up to care for her when the planet needs us to the most. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a tree sister. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. It's been a pleasure being here with you and look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you, Selma. Lovely to see you. Thank you for being here. Thank you everyone for your time today.